Welcome to the Influencer Marketing Blueprint, where we teach e-commerce brands the three-step formula that drives revenue, not just likes. I'm Cody Whittick.
And I'm Taylor Lagasse, and we're here to guide you to influencer marketing success. Let's get started.
All right, Taylor, we're talking about where you find influencers, how the heck do you freaking choose them when you get there, all the above. So we're going to get into some pros and cons of free tools, paid tools, how you choose influencers, what type of influencer you should choose. Some of this we talked about in the last episode. But yeah, so let's start. Where do you even find influencers? What would you say? Let's just go with some of the free tools that are out there.
Yeah, as we would say, let's dive in. Free tools, Meta, Facebook's brand clouds manager is one. You got to apply to be a part of it. Transparently speaking, though, I don't know if you've run into this pushback at all, Cody, but it seems as though sometimes applications get backed up a little bit. So if you have problems with that, another great free tool is also TikTok Creator Marketplace. 2 free tools. But what would you have to say about each of those, C-Dub?
Well, yeah, I just saw that on Twitter, actually. Facebook Collabs Manager was not accepting applications.
Oh, really?
Or
Nice.
what's now called Meta for Creators.
Yeah.
And then TikTok Creator Marketplace, if you want to obviously work with specific TikTok influencers, that's the best way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one being Instagram drop-down arrow. So that's just Instagram itself, the old school method of, my time, every time I went to the bathroom, found 5 new influencers, just scrolling, take advantage of that time.
You can get a lot done on the John.
That's right. So, 5 new influencers, depending on, if you just go once a day, that's 150 influencers right there, right on the drop-down arrow.
Guys,
that's
productive.
Free, folks. That's free.
No breaks, no bathroom breaks. And when you do, you're still getting it done.
People are scrolling anyways.
Do you know why they're not taking any more applications, or how long they're not taking any applications? Because I do think that tool shows a lot of promise, especially as Facebook continues to grow, which is inevitable. Is there any information on that?
Zuck texted me, said it should be up in a couple weeks. So
you heard it here first, folks.
I have no idea. I don't know. I don't know.
But truly, I don't know. We've talked about this internally, but what do you think? Do you think Facebook and TikTok, with the platforms that they're offering, while they're not, we'll get in, or at least I'm assuming we'll get into what we use currently for identification that we pay for, but do you think TikTok's Creator Marketplace and Facebook Brand Collabs Manager as tools ultimately will, rid the rest of these third-party tools, just by, how they continue to grow and become more robust? They both are the motherships, creating this entire space. But I don't know. It's just curious to hear your thoughts on that.
They certainly could if they wanted to. We saw some example of Shopify buying Dovetail, which is another CRM type of tool that we just saw recently. I don't know that officially. It certainly seems as though that they brought it into the Shopify ecosystem and pubbed it as a way to work with influencers and keep track of your influencer campaign. So I would imagine there was some sort of purchase there, but maybe that could be a telltale sign.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think? You certainly have been a big proponent of those tools eventually taking over, or platforms.
It's like you said, if they want to, right? These third-party tools are just scraping data from those 2 tools at the end of the day, and like YouTube and all these other social platforms. So if they wanted to, that's the original source of all the data that they're pulling from. I'm just really curious to see, in the same way, Facebook ads, you can optimize for conversions. Can you place that sort of thing when identifying influencers down the line through Facebook's identification tool? Hey, we want influencers that quote unquote optimize for conversions. That'd be really neat.
Or finding their audience's purchase power.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So then we would probably put some stock in influencers as distributors at that point. A little more, at least.
Hmm.
But yeah, just interesting to
Okay.
think about.
So those are some free tools for identification. People out there that are just starting out an influencer, definitely milk the free tools that are at your disposal with, again, review Facebook Brand Collabs Manager or Meta for Creators, if they're letting people into the ecosystem. Instagram itself, if you have, we didn't really talk about that, but if you have any specific influencer in mind, you could just go to the profile and there's a drop down arrow, and it's just algorithm picked influencers, all based on people that post similar things, use similar hashtags, etc. And then TikTok Creator Marketplace, although there is some differences there with TikTok Creator Marketplace being more of a hand raise model of you create a campaign, then you invite influencers, and they can either accept or deny versus kind of a cold outreach. Um, so those are some free tools. Taylor, do you want to break down some paid tools, maybe what we use and suggest?
Yeah, I mean, we recently just vetted a ton of tools too, but most robust tool that we've been able to identify is Tagger Media. Um, Definitely the most robust when it comes to identification. There's a lot of tools out there, obviously, and a lot of noise around. I mean, I'm sure anybody that's familiar with the influencer space has probably heard of Grin, Spire IQ. The list goes on to what seems an infinite degree.
Mm-hmm.
But they also entail like CRMs. They also entail all these other things that may not be necessary based on what your needs are as a brand. But identification wise, specifically, Tagger seems to be the most robust. But what are your favorite things about Tagger, CW?
Favorite things? I don't know if I
Or
have
most
like a
useful?
favorite aspect of Tiger. It just seems, I mean, primarily all we're using it for is discovery. So
Mm-hmm.
they have highly vetted. Uh, there's other platforms that have other tools or ways to get more influencers on the platform, but this seems to be, they know for sure that these profiles are not bots or fake, but they're
Yeah.
actual confirmed. So 7 million is maybe small compared to some others that I even know for sure. Other platforms have 10, 20, 100 million profiles, but how real they are. So it sounds better,
Yeah.
but it seems to be more uh, like the actual ways of going about identifying influencers. And it's nice because you can add, if you discover influencers that aren't on the platform, you can just add them right then and there. And sure enough, they can get added into it. So, what about you? What are some other things that pop up around Tagger?
Um, you're able to filter through content really easily. Um, that's a highlight for sure. For me, I just felt like you can filter through anything you could possibly imagine that you'd want to based on demographics, everything
Mm-hmm.
could think of there, right? Male, female audience, what are they interested in? Who do they have affinity with? What are they posting about? Keywords. You can literally filter anything your mind can possibly imagine, truly. And there's a filtration system for that to identify exactly what you're looking for. But again, quantitatively, yes, you can do it to the nth degree on Tagger. But then, in addition to that, video content creation ability, which we've harped on before, is so crucial. You're able to easily filter through that on their platform as well. So,
Yeah, you can click on the links pretty easily when you search influencers, their social links, and you can just go right to their profile and see that without it going out of Tagger itself. It just out clicks to a new tab or new window, things like that.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, that's our recommendation. I'm sure there's other good ones. We continue to, like Taylor said, we continue to vet other platforms against one another and continue to choose Tagger. So
yeah.
um,
You just brought up one last final point there too. Like TikTok, you're obviously only identifying TikTok creators.
mhm.
Meta for creators, you're obviously only identifying Facebook and Instagram creators. That's another value out of Tagger. It has everything on there that you'd want: TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram,
Yeah.
all the above, and some more. And they're constantly adding new platforms into it as well that influencers exist on.
Yeah, even Twitch, all those
Yeah, yeah,
Twitch influencers that you follow.
that's right.
Big gamer
Big
TL.
gamer.
Yeah.
Yeah, my fiance told me if I played video games, I'd be out after the first date, so had to give it up.
You gave her up. That's smart. That's smart.
Yeah. Yep.
Um, all right. So when you get to these tools and you use them, okay, so like someone listening is going to check out the free tools based on our recommendation first. How do you actually pick? Like, this person looks great based on quantitative metrics, like, but even, those paid tools, that's the only place that you're seeing quantitative metrics without just simply looking at their follower count or doing the math
Right.
in your head on their engagement rate. So how do you actually, like, who and how do you choose? What would be your first response to that?
And my first response, there's a lot of things that go into this, but where would I start? Um, who and how? Well, yeah, like we said, start quantitatively. It's not the most important, but start there. Try to align, the influencers you're looking to represent your brand quantitatively with your customer data. So, who is your customer? Let's look to that as much as we can as a North Star for what we want to look for quantitatively with the influencers we're identifying on behalf of the brand. So, what makes them a brand fit, persona fit, demographic fit, all of the above, plug that into. You can do it on your free tools that you're using, you can do it on Tagger, so on and so forth. But then again, after you do, you'll get a list that perfectly aligns with that relatively easily when you're using these tools we're recommending. But the hard part exists at the next step here, where there entails a definite white glove approach and some time that needs to go into identifying the best video content creators specifically, in addition to, which is just as important, if not the most important, as that quantitative data. Um, so that's where I would start. But how would you
Well,
build on
you
that?
you you brought up a good point on person. You use the word persona.
Mm.
So if you were Lululemon, what personas would you break your brand down into, just for sake of example?
Lululemon fitness would be one. Um, what's another one? Help me out here.
Maybe some moms out there
Yeah.
they love the leggings. They gotta be active, walking their kid around the lake.
Yeah. Maybe a yogi or something.
Yeah. So if you go with those three, then maybe that's kind of like the categorically how you're picking people based on your own brand persona, like Taylor was saying, basically breaking down your brand into 3 to 5 persona types, and you're kind of looking through that lens to kind of enter into the black hole before you start going into all these different ways that you can assess an influencer. Let's break down your brand first, um, and then go into exactly more of like a quantitative metric. Speaking of quantitative metrics, last week we talked a lot about like the different types of influencer, tiers of influencer. We probably mentioned last week again, or last episode, around, specifically focusing on micro influencers.
Yeah.
So that's kind of checked. But if you didn't hear that, then that would be our suggestion: is focus on micro influencers. Our definition is between 5 and 150K of following. It's
Yeah.
very broad. Is there reasons why it's broad? Like, why not more narrow, in your opinion?
My opinion, that's just where, agents and managers aren't really involved. Lower than 150K. You don't really see people that, I mean, we're defining it based off all the benefits that we lay out, right? You avoid
Yeah.
agents, you avoid managers, you get direct relationships. A lot of the time when you fall out for usage rights to the content after they post, they grant it free of cost. 150K just seems to be that threshold, where
Hmm.
engagement on a per follower basis is much higher, conversion rates higher, all the above. Like all those things tend to be true at 150K and below. So,
Right.
personal opinion, that's why we have that threshold a little higher. Everyone's definition is different. So, you can already hear the trolls if we didn't say this saying that's not a micro influencer. We know. That's just our definition. But what would you say?
Yeah, and essentially, we're not putting a lot of stock in follower count, right?
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
just it's meant to be just guide rails of a pool of people that we can select from for exactly the reasons that you mentioned. But other than that, it's not really much. Like, we're not getting sucked in by all the followers. Like even at
Right.
150K, it's only for the reasons that you just mentioned.
Yeah.
Easier to get a hold of, but better engagement. Usually better content creation because they haven't built their following based on their name or who they are necessarily, but based on the content that they've consistently put out
And there's just
over
more
years
of
of
them,
time.
right? There's just
Right.
more of them. There's more micros than macros, so there's a bigger pool.
Yep. Exactly. All right. Well, you mentioned something in the beginning too, and we might have talked about this previously, but for sake of just continue to beat a dead horse here, for for you mentioned video content creation ability.
Yeah.
Something that we talk about is like creator versus distributor.
Right.
You want to break down exactly kind of paired with video content creation ability, exactly what that means?
Yeah, we're just I mean, I think this is catching wind, but a couple years ago when we first started saying this, we were met with some pushback. But we're just valuing influencers as creators, so we value their video content over them as distributors, which is their audience and posting organically, and you know their followers seeing that content. To elaborate on that, we just know we can distribute the content that they create far better than they ever could. Like again, TikTok's algorithm is set up for success right now for content to go viral, sure, but ultimately that will come to an end, and still we'd be able to distribute that content better. But
Right.
majority of these social media platforms, you only reach 10% of your audience. So if they have 100K followers, they'll reach 10,000 of those followers with the content they're posting. Where when we use that content through paid media on TikTok ads or Facebook ads, whatever it is, we can take that content and put it in front of millions of people.
Mm-hmm.
So we value the content far more because we're going to be able to put it in front of far more people, and have better control, put it in front of the right people that are most likely to
Right.
convert. So
And you,
long-winded answer.
the brand has more places even outside of paid social, like
Yeah, yeah, of course.
website, email, a PDP page, all these paid search, Amazon, like landing pages, things like that. Like there's so
Right.
many different places. And so it's like investing in one stock versus the diversified portfolio. You don't want to put like, not that you don't put your stock in them as a
Right.
distribution channel, meaning the
Good point.
influencer, but let's diversify it. Let's redistribute this content into other places where you can make more money,
Right.
and get more visibility, even if we just go on an impression basis, like you just said, with 10%. So
Mm-hmm.
that's,
It's good
but
points.
why, why video? Because we come across brand owners that might talk with us that have a lot of imagery. Maybe it's jewelry brand, that's kind of common, or a women's fashion brand. There's a lot of imagery that they might get already a ton of UGC. So why are we valuing video primarily? And even touch on it from like a paid perspective.
Well, that's the only really perspective I have at the end of the day for this reason. And I mean, we can hypothesize, right, and
Yeah.
put out our subjective opinions, but we have visibility in $350 million of ad spend, and time again, there's significant correlation between a lift in performance when using video content in comparison to static imagery. And I believe the organic side of things showcases that as well. I mean, Facebook puts out a lot of data on
Yeah.
that. TikTok, all the social media platforms, validate this truth. So we can hypothesize why we think it is. It's more thumb stopping, it catches your attention, and it's more engaging. But at the end of the day, these would all be theories. The data just showcases video tends to outperform static imagery, so that's what we're really after.
Yeah, and to kind of touch on the other side of things, like even recently, all these platforms have gone more video in that direction. So they're telling you what they're focusing on and what they want to promote.
It's a good point.
With even just Instagram itself, like with Reels, even people posting Reels were getting all kinds of crazy views because Instagram was really focusing when they launched it. They want people to be using this new feature.
Right.
And you've seen that with YouTube Shorts, and I think Snapchat has its own version now of Stories, and well, they were the kind of the original of Stories, but like different TikTok type content.
Mm.
So you've seen these platforms like promote and be really promoting video. I mean, even the last 10 years, it's been like a slow, but even recently, it's been definitely a fast progression um, of what they want to really promote users to do, and therefore they show
Mm-hmm.
uh, when you're putting video ads live. So
Still launch it though. I mean, don't still launch the static imagery. Definitely,
yeah,
prefer video over static imagery and get it every chance you get. But this doesn't
okay,
say just toss the imagery to the side and still cherry, still gravy, get it going. We definitely have seen images still scale out accounts when repurposing it.
it's good to know because I've taken a lot of still imagery lately of my women's fashion brand. It hasn't been performing, but I'll try
I've been seeing
video.
you wear that. I've been seeing you wear that lately. You look good in it, man.
Yeah, thanks. Oh, that was private.
Mm. Now everyone knows.
Um, anyways, so okay, so basically to catch you up to speed, we're breaking down our brand into three personas. We have tools to find these influencers. Taylor, you're telling me to really focus on video content. I got it. Micro influencers. I'm gonna go with your definition instead of Googling it. 5 to 150K of following. I get it. I have more places I can place the content, and if I'm going to place the content, I need to get repurposability, things like that. But quantitatively, like what metrics should I be looking for to even go deeper on analyzing an influencer?
Yeah, I mean, again, go to your customer data and just try to nitpick it as much as possible. Look at every filtration system that you have available to you in Meta for Creators or TikTok Creator Marketplace or Tagger if you choose to make that investment. Check out
Mm-hmm.
every single possible option you have to filter through and align that with your customer data. So, you're going to be able to have the option to identify male or female. Super simple example here, but it applies across the board. So if you're predominantly male, all right, let's get people to represent that customer base through these influencers by identifying males, and vice versa if it's female, so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
The list goes on. But again, just look at every option you have available to you. Look to your data within Google Analytics, within Shopify, whatever platforms you have, and align it as much as you can. But how would you build on that, or what's your take on that?
Let's say 1% or above engagement rate. Again, like what Taylor's saying with them as a distribution channel, that might sound low to probably 99% of people, like only 1%. I thought it was 3 to 5% or even greater. We would just say 1% or above. We want to see like an active profile, just someone that, you guys are not going to their profile and they last post was 2018 or even 6 months ago. And then the one thing that I would caution people is fake followers. And especially if you don't have a paid tool, like you're not going to be able to just click a button and it show you fake follower count. But just extremely high or low combination of likes and comments compared to follower count. So 20,000 followers and their last 6 posts are 30 likes and 0 comments, kind of like my posts. We won't talk about that though. And but those are kind of three things that like you can very simply look at: engagement rate, combination of likes and comments, divided by follower count. That's pretty standard, but just to kind of belabor the point. Um, all right, let's use this last bit of time for content creation ability. How do we assess this? Like, where do we go? What do we look for? Things of that nature. Take our listeners through that. Give them the
Yeah.
school video content creation ability.
And I will say, as we transition here, like um, all the metrics that we just, Cody you just brought up, like 1% engagement rate and everything else. Would you, if their video content creation ability was through the roof, disregard all of that and still potentially work with that influencer?
Yeah,
Just
I think
give the listener like the hierarchy of decision making here, if that was something presented to them.
yeah. There's definitely number one. What Taylor's about to break down is the number one filter of which we're picking people. Although I just I doubt those things aren't correlated. Like that Taylor's extreme example of like fake followers, for example. Doubt they built their following off great content creation ability, or they don't have an engaged audience. That means they're probably not putting out content consistently. That's good. Just things like that. Like there usually are correlated at a minimum of 1%. But in the extreme example, not to dodge the question, yeah, I would still work with that influencer if there was enough evidence and consistency and they were actually active on the profile, and it'd be worth testing or at least seeding my product, which we'll get into eventually. But
right. That's good. Yeah. Again, just giving the listener the hierarchy, making it very clear there in the decision-making process. But content creation ability, like Cody has, touched on, we're looking at how we want to make sure that the cadence, the frequency that they're posting video content is pretty frequently. Again, when seeding, we want to have a high probability that they're going to ultimately post video content. So we want to look through their profiles in a way that identifies how frequently, how often are they putting out video. And then in the type of video content that we're looking for and identifying quality creators, does their video content capture my attention the first 3 seconds of their video? Is it thumb stopping? Are they articulate? Are they charismatic? All these things. Like, long story short, if we put product in this person's hands, would they be able to sell me on the product through the content that they're creating, posting, and that we ultimately want to repurpose into video content? So if they check all those boxes, yes, then they are a video content creator, someone worth potentially partnering up with. But what are your thoughts?
Are there specific places that you check those things?
I actually don't know. Can you tell me? No, please, but elaborate. What would you say?
Well, I just meant so for instance, like Instagram stories and YouTube being the primary areas where we actually check and do our homework on the specific influencer.
I was going to say set up 100,000 Zoom interviews, but
yeah,
I'm glad you took that one over.
That's much more time, just a little bit.
Yeah.
But no, like Taylor's saying, the frequency of which you can see is people, how often are they selfie view within their Instagram stories? How often do they get on camera and just talk about things that they're already, using and loving? So if you're Lululemon, to keep going with the example, and they're already, doing yoga on a consistent basis and getting on camera, selfie view, talking about their sessions and things like that, or other tools or resources that they use for yoga, then more than likely they probably would get on and talk about Lululemon leggings if they like it. But also YouTube is probably the primary place. They don't necessarily have to be a YouTuber, like 100,000 subscribers, but just, again, like Taylor's saying, evidence where you can see frequent video content. And you don't even have to watch much of the video to see some of the things that Taylor's mentioning, of just being captivating, being creative, being charismatic on camera. So again, hopefully this episode gives you some idea of how to start, where to start, how do I pick influencers, where do I find them, and how do I choose when I actually have a list in front of me or a certain people or persona type in front of me. How do I actually pick these people? But stay tuned for next episode.
Magic Man
Bye,
out.
Taylor. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Influencer Marketing Blueprint. If you have a question or you want some help, you can connect with Taylor or myself on Twitter and send us a direct message there. You can also find us online at kynship.co. That's kinship.co. We're here to help you create an influencer campaign that actually works and not just get likes. So we'll be back next week with more straightforward advice, and we'll see you then.